Autism. Unlocking potential. Navigating education law for autistic learners. Legal protections in education. Safeguarding equal opportunity and access. Legal frameworks have evolved to protect the educational rights of autistic individuals, providing crucial accommodations, resources, and support for their academic and social success. Key legislative acts include the Rehabilitation Act, Section 504, in 1973, and the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, in 1975. U.S. Special Education Rights and Protections. At a glance. The Rehabilitation Act, Section 504 of 1973. Ensuring equal access. The significance of Section 504. The Rehabilitation Act of 1973, particularly Section 504, is a crucial federal civil rights law in the United States. It aims to combat discrimination against individuals with disabilities in programs and activities that receive federal funding. As a foundational piece of disability rights legislation, Section 504 set the stage for later laws like the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA. It ensures that individuals with disabilities have equal access to education, employment, and other opportunities by prohibiting discrimination and requiring reasonable accommodations and program accessibility. In education, Section 504 mandates that federally funded schools provide equal access and accommodations to students with disabilities, ensuring they receive the same educational opportunities as their non-disabled peers. Schools must adjust policies, practices, and procedures to allow students with disabilities to participate fully in academic pursuits, extracurricular activities, and school-sponsored events. Section 504 also protects students from discrimination based on their disability status, ensuring they are not unfairly excluded or deprived of educational benefits due to their disability. Critical components of Section 504 include: definition of disability. Section 504 defines a disability as a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. Major life activities include walking, seeing, hearing, speaking, breathing, learning, working, and caring for oneself. Non-discrimination in employment. Section 504 prohibits discrimination in employment practices by federal agencies and private employers that receive federal contracts or financial assistance. Procedural safeguards. Section 504 provides specific rights and protections to individuals with disabilities and their families. These include the right to request accommodations, participate in program planning, and file complaints of discrimination with the appropriate federal agency, empowering them to advocate for their rights. Program accessibility. Section 504 mandates that covered entities ensure their programs and activities are accessible to individuals with disabilities. This can involve physically modifying facilities to accommodate wheelchair users, providing accessible communication formats, and designing programs to include individuals with diverse abilities. Prohibition of discrimination. Section 504 prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities in any program or activity receiving federal funding. This includes public schools, colleges, universities, hospitals, social service agencies, and other entities that receive federal financial assistance. Reasonable accommodations. Section 504 requires covered entities to provide various reasonable accommodations to qualified individuals with disabilities. These accommodations ensure equal access to programs and activities. They can include modifications to policies, practices, or procedures, provision of auxiliary aids and services, or structural changes to facilities. The Rehabilitation Act, Section 504 of 1973. Enforcement. The U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights, OCR, and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, enforce Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. These agencies investigate discrimination complaints based on disability in programs and activities that receive federal financial assistance. They ensure compliance with Section 504 by conducting investigations, providing technical assistance, and taking enforcement actions against entities that violate the law. Individuals who believe they have experienced discrimination under Section 504 can file complaints with OCR or HHS, which will trigger an investigation into the alleged violation. If the investigation confirms non-compliance, the enforcing agency may require corrective action or withhold federal funding from the non-compliant entity. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, of 1975. Empowering Education for Children with Disabilities. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, is a landmark federal law in the United States that ensures children with disabilities receive a free and appropriate public education, known as FAPE. IDEA governs how states and public agencies provide early intervention, special education, and related services to children and youth with disabilities, fostering inclusive educational opportunities from birth through age 21. Initially enacted in 1975 as the Education for All Handicapped Children Act, EHA, IDEA was reauthorized and amended in 1990, 1997, 2004, and 2015. Critical components of IDEA include Child Find. IDEA requires states to identify, locate, and evaluate children with disabilities, regardless of the severity of their condition. This ensures that every child who needs special education and related services is identified and receives timely support. Evaluation and eligibility. Once a child is identified, they undergo a comprehensive assessment to determine eligibility for special education services. This evaluation includes various assessments and observations conducted by a team of professionals. Free Appropriate Public Education, FAPE. FAPE guarantees that eligible children with disabilities receive an education tailored to their needs at no cost to their families. It ensures that these children have access to the same educational opportunities as their non-disabled peers and receive the necessary support to make academic progress. Individualized Education Program, IEP. IDEA mandates the creation of an individualized education program, known as an IEP, for each eligible child. The IEP is a written document that outlines the child's academic performance, annual goals, special education services, related services, accommodations, and modifications needed. Least Restrictive Environment, LRE. IDEA mandates that children with disabilities be educated in the least restrictive environment possible, meaning they should be educated with their non-disabled peers to the maximum extent appropriate, while still receiving the support they need. Parental Participation. IDEA emphasizes the importance of involving parents in the special education process, including their participation in IEP meetings and decision-making. Procedural safeguards. IDEA includes protections to ensure the rights of children with disabilities and their families are upheld. This includes mechanisms for parents to participate in decision-making, resolve disputes through mediation or due process hearings, and be informed of their rights. Transition services. IDEA requires schools to provide transition services to help students near the end of their school years prepare for life after high school. These services may include vocational training, job placement assistance, post-secondary education support, and independent living skills training. Discipline protections. IDEA includes provisions to protect the rights of students with disabilities in disciplinary proceedings, ensuring they are not disciplined more harshly than their non-disabled peers and receive appropriate support for behavioral challenges. The Individuals with Disabilities Act, IDEA. Enforcement. The U.S. Department of Education's Office of Special Education Programs, OSUP, enforces and oversees the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. OSUP ensures compliance with IDEA regulations through monitoring, providing technical assistance to states and school districts, and investigating complaints of noncompliance. When violations occur, OSUP requires corrective actions, such as developing improvement plans or withholding federal funds. Individuals or organizations can file complaints directly with OSUP, prompting an investigation into the alleged violations. If OSUP confirms a violation, it works with the involved parties to resolve the issue and ensure adherence to the law. 504 Plan vs. IEP Individualized Education Program. At a glance. Both the 504 Plan and the IEP Individualized Education Program provide legal protections and support for disabled students, including those who are autistic. However, it is essential to understand the critical differences between their purposes, eligibility criteria, scope of services, and legal protections. (504) Plan vs. IEP Individualized Education Program. Purpose. A 504 Plan, established under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, is a legally binding document. It is designed to provide accommodations and support services to students with disabilities who need help accessing educational programs and activities on an equal basis with their peers. A 504 Plan ensures that the student receives a free and appropriate public education, FAPE, to participate fully in school even if they do not qualify for special education services. An IEP Individualized Education Program is a legally binding document created for students who qualify for special education services under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. It outlines specific educational goals, services, and accommodations to support students' academic and developmental needs, and ensures they receive a free appropriate public education, FAPE, in the least restrictive environment. 504 Plan vs. IEP Individualized Education Program. Eligibility. Eligibility for a 504 Plan is broader and includes students with disabilities that significantly limit major life activities, such as learning, walking, seeing, or hearing. These conditions can include autism, ADHD, or mental health disorders. To qualify for an IEP Individualized Education Program, a student must meet the criteria for one or more of the 13 disability categories defined by IDEA and demonstrate that their disability adversely affects their educational performance, requiring specialized instruction and support. These 13 disability categories include autism spectrum disorder, ASD, deaf-blindness, deafness, emotional disturbance, hearing impairment, intellectual disability, multiple disabilities, orthopedic impairment, other health impairment, specific learning disability, speech or language impairment, traumatic brain injury, TBI, and visual impairment, including blindness. 504 Plan vs. IEP Individualized Education Program. Scope of services. A 504 Plan focuses on providing accommodations to remove barriers and ensure equal access to education. Accommodations include modifying the physical environment, changing classroom procedures, extending test times, or providing assistive technology. An IEP individualized education program offers a more comprehensive range of services. It includes specialized instruction, speech or occupational therapy services, accommodations, curriculum modifications, and specific, measurable annual goals to meet the student's unique needs. 504 Plan versus IEP Individualized Education Program. Legal protections. Section 504 of the Federal Rehabilitation Act of 1973, including protections under the Americans with Disabilities Act (ADA), offers lifetime legal protections against disability-based discrimination. This provision ensures that students with disabilities receive the necessary accommodations to participate fully in school activities. While Section 504 does not provide the same procedural safeguards as IEP's individualized education programs, it still delivers crucial support to help students access their educational opportunities equally. IEP's individualized education programs are legally enforceable documents, governed by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, and include protections under the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA. IEPs grant students specific rights and access to due process procedures for resolving disputes, ensuring they receive a free appropriate public education, FAPE. These legal protections are available to students with disabilities from ages 3 to 21 or the age of high school graduation, whichever occurs sooner. Upon IEP termination, legal protections and benefits are transferred to a lifetime 504 plan through the IEP transition plan process. Beyond the classroom. How ADA and FERPA benefit students with disabilities. Autistic individuals have additional legal protections, beyond Section 504 and IDEA, to safeguard their educational rights. The Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, plays a key role, with Title II prohibiting discrimination by public entities like schools and colleges. Title III extends these protections to private entities, such as private schools and universities, ensuring they provide accessibility and reasonable accommodations for equal educational opportunities. Additionally, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, protects the confidentiality of student education records, including those of students with disabilities. FERPA grants parents and eligible students the right to access and control the disclosure of educational records, including important information about special education services and evaluations. Together, these laws enhance the educational experience for autistic individuals by ensuring fairness, privacy, and adequate support throughout their schooling.